Hello, and happy spring from your friends here at the Financial Advisory Group. And as our message said last time, when the weather's nice, don't ask what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. We got another good day out today. Go for that walk when the weather's nice, especially as spring comes in. These evenings, as they get longer, it's a great time just to enjoy life and go out and enjoy the world around us. So happy spring. Also, it's a little bit late, but I'll bring in my guy over here to say happy St. Patrick's Day. He's my market prognosticator. So sort of like the groundhog goes down if he sees his shadow. So we'll tell you what he's telling us now, but a happy belated St. Patrick's Day to everyone as well. Well, wow, things have changed a little bit. It's only been about a month. And if you would have told me that a month ago there's going to be banks that fail and things would change that quickly, I'm not sure I would have believed you. But I think there's a lot of that's gone on in the last 3 years if someone would have told us everything that has unfolded. Let's start there, though, right? I'm sure we're all curious about Silicon Valley Bank and sort of the domino effect since then. And in short, right, the most important thing we'd say is we have confidence in the banking system. Silicon Valley Bank failed, so have some others, but we're really impressed with what the Federal Reserve and Janet Yellen and the federal sort of government all got together and came up with a plan quickly after Silicon Valley Bank failed to make sure our money in banks is safe and protected. We can argue if it's the right or wrong thing to do. I think it's very important for the banking system to be steady and dependable. And our view is it is. We don't have worries at this point about money held at banks. Now, that can change, but as of right now, no worries. The government did an excellent job of stepping in quickly and making sure that the banks are solvent. And if you want money, you can get it. The quick note also on Silicon Valley is the average account holder there held about $4.2 million. I'm guessing to say M&T's average account holder is a little bit smaller. So a very different type of bank, but even those who held $4.2 million, fully protected, right? So they came in and said, if you have money at a bank, you're safe, right? They stepped up and did a good job in our view of sort of calming the banking system. The other question is, well, then how did this get paid for? So far, it's not from our taxpayer dollars, which is a great thing. Very different from 2007, 2008, 2009, for many reasons. But one of them being so far the FDIC insurance, which the banks pay, is what is covering most of this at this point. So again, it's great that they stepped in, ensured the banking system, made us feel more comfortable holding our funds there, but also haven't come to the taxpayer to do that bailout, if you would. Very different. In 08 and 09, if you held stock in the bank, you were somewhat protected. If you were a bondholder, you were somewhat protected. This time, that's not the case. This time, the only people really protected were the people who held money at Silicon Valley Bank. Those are businesses. Those are regular people like you and me. Yes, they may have been over the FDIC limit in some cases, but Silicon Valley is a different world, right? $250,000 doesn't go that far in Silicon Valley. So again, very important. And I think some people, how did this happen, right? It's sort of complicated, but part of it is, we've mentioned for a long time, the Federal Reserve had to pedal down on this car for a long time, trying to get this economy to go as fast as it could. And the fear we mentioned to a lot of you is if you hit the brakes too fast, what happens to that car? It crashes, right? And there's ramifications. I think this is the first sign that the Federal Reserve has got is you may be hitting the brakes too fast. Hence, there was just a Federal Reserve meeting today. Today, I'm filming this on Wednesday, March 22nd, and the Fed has backed off raising rates, right? They saw the signs that the brakes were being hit too hard, and for the first time, they backed off a little bit, right? So they're paying attention. In the weird way, this may end up being a sign that the markets welcomes, right? Not that it welcomes bank failures, but if this gets the Fed to back off that brake pedal, that could help the markets, not in the next month or two, but sort of like we talked about last time. We really like this, what we see for the next 2-3 years, similar to what we felt like in March of 2020. So that's a real quick part on Silicon Valley. Feel safe with the money in the banks at this point in time. The government has really done a great job stepping in to make us feel confident in the system. And the Federal Reserve backed off a little bit because I think they realized, boy, we did hit the brakes very quickly and there were repercussions starting to be felt. There may be some ripple effects of this. It's not all over. I'm sure there'll be other banks in the news, but it looks like at this point, we have a pretty good handle on it. And the government has basically said, listen, if you have money at a bank, we have your back. Now, that has ramifications. We'll talk about that later, but let's just feel comfortable with that today. So as we move on, right, I think it's a great example, though. It's not like we have nothing to worry about these days, right? It feels like every single day there's something new to worry about. And we've talked about this last year. We made videos about it. It's like we what if our lives away. Well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And I think if you see the headline of our slide here, it's, are we too worried about yesterday's problems, right? We keep getting caught up. Even the bank failure is a good example. Right now that's been protected. We're worried about it today, but what's happening next, right? And to me, this last 2-3 years gave us some great examples. We were worried about lumber, and oh my God, lumber is going to be expensive forever back in March of 21. We all know now that lumber is cheaper today than it was prior to COVID, and it hasn't filtered all the way down to Lowe's and Home Depot, but it will eventually. What was the talking point of 2022? Everything's great, but what about those eggs, right? Well, if we showed this chart last time, egg prices have started coming back down. In fact, in the latest inflation reading, you're starting to see food prices come down in general as well, right? Things are getting less worse, right? Well, what about oil, right? To me, this is an interesting story. Oil in the last 3 years has had an interesting ride. If someone would have told us this, we wouldn't have believed it. The price of a barrel of oil went negative. Yes, negative in early sort of mid 2020 when COVID hit, because no one needed oil. No one needed gas. Back in June of 2022, though, just about 9 months ago, oil hit about 120, 130 a barrel. At that time, every article you read said oil is going to get to $200 a barrel. You're going to pay $6 a gallon for gas. And we started saying, oh my God, what if, what if, what if? 9 months later, oil is down to $70 a barrel. And you're at the gas pump, instead of paying $5.10 a gallon, which was where we were in June in PA, we're down to about $3.60, right? No one wrote articles saying, what if the price goes to $3.60, right? All the attention went to what if the price goes to $6. And again, I think to us, we worry about these problems that are yesterday's problems instead of saying, let's just enjoy the today. Sticking with that inflation issue, if you look at this chart, this is what's so important. Yes, inflation is still higher than we want it to be, but it's heading in the right direction. We kept using the term last year, things are getting less worse all around us. We think that trend is continuing. Of course, we want inflation to go away completely, but it doesn't go away that quickly. We just have to be patient. So as you see in this chart, inflation overall is coming back down. You even see things like food starting to trend in the right direction. So we just need to be patient here. And I think that's the point we make, is we keep worrying about problem after problem after problem. And as you see my line down below, it feels like we're too busy chasing perfect that we miss out that things are good, right? And just enjoy the today and the present. Hence that message last time, when the weather's nice out, don't worry if it's going to rain tomorrow, enjoy the today. And it goes with our theme that we'll get to, is just control what you can control. So inflation's still heading in the right direction. And again, to us, the Fed backing off a little bit will help things. But Damien, what if a bank fails, right? It's the new what if of the day. Who would have told us, right? This goes back to the day before Silicon Valley failed. The market, this looks at actually the market, the S&P 500, is actually up from the day before a bank failed till now. The market's positive. The market thinks about things totally different than we do, right? You and I hear bank failure and get scared. The market hears bank failure and says, wait, the Fed may actually back off a little bit now, which in turn actually makes rates lower, which may help get this economy going again at some point. So the market just thinks about things totally different than we do. And that's why I think instead of this whack-a-mole idea we have of let's worry about the next problem, worry about the next problem, I think what we need to do is focus on what we can control, right? And that's what we'll get into now. So if someone would have told us 3 years ago, and we've gone through this activity, in March of 2020, COVID hits, all the things that were going to unfold in front of our eyes, right? And we've gone through that. We all know it, right? That the world shuts down, schools shut down, businesses shut down. Add in the Ukraine war, add in the gas prices going to the highest price ever, add in the highest inflation ever, the most aggressive Fed ever. Oh, and at the end, you add in banks failing. Who would have thought the market would actually go up? And we get distracted by the news. In fact, in March of 2020, $326 billion came out of stock funds, the largest ever. It was the largest ever coming out, and it tripled what came out in March of 2008, which was the previous record. Or sorry, in late 2008. So what we learn is we get so caught up in the news of the day, we make a bad emotional decision and then tend to regret it later. So our message right now, and as we'll talk through this a little bit, is let's focus on what we can control. We can't control the news. We can't control what Jerome Powell is going to say in his press conference. We can make good decisions. And that comes back to one of our favorite charts. There's things that matter. There's things you can control. What we try to do here is focus where they overlap. We want to focus on the things that matter and that we can control. So what does that mean? We've talked about this for a while with clients, and we finally have a visual illustration of it. We think what that means is, we want to make sure that when you need funds, we have them somewhere liquid and available. The worst thing that can happen with markets is that the market hits a rough spot like it did in September of 2022 or all of 2022, and we come and need to pull money out. The worst thing is just not selling, or the worst thing to do is sell when things are down, right? We quiz clients, do you care what the value of your house is today? Usually the answer we get back is no, because I'm not selling it. Well, then why do you care what the value of your portfolio is, right? The only time it matters is when you sell it. So what we want to do is focus on that part. And if we can keep some reserve set aside, so when you need money, we can pull from the reserve bucket, and then we only have to sell when we have to replenish that bucket. We can choose when that is. We can choose the good times. And when it's down, we just don't need to replenish that bucket. So we finally have a visual to sort of show this to you in a more, illustrated way, if you would, where you can see what we're trying to focus on and trying to get the message across, right? If you look at a bucket strategy, hopefully most people have some type of emergency fund. It's financial planning 101, set aside, that's kept at home, kept at a local bank, that if the roof needs repaired, if there's car issues, if there's a vacation, some smaller expenses coming up, you can cover that from that pot, right? The second part is what we actually hold here, right? We've illustrated this to most of you over the times, but we keep a reserve of 1 to 3 years, sometimes a little bit more, of reserves somewhere safe, right? That way, if you call and need money in March of 2020, or even in September of 2022 when the market hits its low, we can pull from here because this bucket already has funds in it. Well, how do funds get there? This top bucket is the part we manage. This is the part that moves, right? This is the part we pay attention to that goes up and down. Well, if we control when to tip the bucket, we can decide when to fill this bucket up. And if we can, from time to time when markets rally, we can tip over into this bucket and replenish it. We've been doing this for the last 6-7 years. We've talked about it, but I think this really illustrates it for you. So our view is, let us focus on this. Let us focus on when to tip that bucket over. We don't want to do it in September, but maybe we do now because the market's actually had a nice 6-month rally. So again, the thing we want to focus on is let's control this and not worry so much about what the Fed says. Because if we have enough reserves set aside in this bucket here, it doesn't matter what the Fed says. It doesn't matter if a bank fails. We have the ability to pick and choose when we tip the bucket over, right? And we tip it over when things are good, and we tip it back flat when they're not, to let it recover. So hopefully that helps illustrate some of sort of our thought process here and why it helps us hopefully try to keep you calm and keep us calm, and understand we just can't control this stuff. So if you can't control it, try to put it to the side and enjoy life. So that's it. Who knows what's going to happen in the next month before we put out our next video. There's a chance that we're going to try to incorporate some others into these videos coming up as well as the year progresses. We continue to wish Diana the best in retirement. She's about 3 months in now. Seems to be doing okay. She looks a little bit younger, so I think she's a little bit less stressed. Other than that, if you have any questions, concerns, let us know. But enjoy the spring. I still didn't tell you what this guy said because usually he's wrong and I still haven't found the pot of gold. Happy belated St. Patrick's Day. Happy spring, and enjoy the day. From your friends at the Financial Advisory Group.